My name is Lawan. I'm 72 years old. And I want to begin tonight with something that surprised me deeply when I first understood it. Something that made me feel, honestly, a little foolish. Because I had spent so many years looking for inner peace in places it could never be found. In achievements, in resolved circumstances, in the arrival of something I was waiting for, in the absence of something I was trying to eliminate. I had constructed an extraordinarily detailed picture of what my life would need to look like before inner peace would be available to me. And I had been working toward that picture with dedication for decades, rearranging, improving, achieving, eliminating, moving pieces of my external life into positions that I believed, once they were right, would finally allow peace to enter. And the pieces never got right, not permanently. There was always another piece that needed moving, another circumstance that needed resolving, another condition that had to be met before the peace I was working toward could actually arrive. And so it never arrived. Not in the complete, settled, permanent way I was imagining. And what I finally understood, what changed everything, was this. Peace was not absent because the conditions weren't right yet. Peace was absent because I had been looking for it in conditions. And peace doesn't live in conditions. It lives in awareness, in the quality of attention you bring to whatever conditions are present. And that quality of attention is something that can be cultivated. Not in extraordinary moments of profound practice, in the most ordinary moments of the most ordinary days, in the simple daily awareness that I want to share with you tonight. Let me tell you what I mean by awareness, because the word gets used in ways that make it sound more complicated and more rare than it actually is. Awareness, as I'm using it tonight, is simply the quality of actually being present to what is happening. Not thinking about what is happening, not evaluating it, not comparing it to what should be happening or what happened before or what might happen next. Just being present to it, feeling it directly, noticing it clearly, without the layer of commentary that the mind automatically adds to every experience, without the interpretation, without the judgment. Just the experience itself as it actually is in this actual moment. This quality of presence is what the Buddhist tradition calls mindfulness. And despite all the ways that word has been used and overused and commercialized in the past few decades, what it actually points to is remarkably simple. Being here, fully, in the experience that is happening right now, rather than being somewhere else in your mind while your body goes through the motions of your life. The reason this matters for peace is something I want to explain carefully, because it's not obvious. Most suffering does not arise from what is actually happening in this moment. It arises from what the mind does with what is happening, from the story it tells about it, the meaning it assigns, the comparison it makes, the anticipation of what this might lead to, the memory of the last time something similar happened and how that went. Most of the mental suffering a human being experiences is generated not by the present moment, but by the mind's activity around the present moment. And awareness, genuine awareness, the kind that actually settles on the present experience rather than immediately departing from it into thinking, interrupts this generation of suffering. Not by solving anything, not by changing the circumstances, by being here in what is actually happening, rather than in the mind's commentary about it. And in that being here, in that direct contact with the present experience, something becomes available that is otherwise inaccessible. A quality of okayness that exists beneath the surface of even difficult circumstances. A steadiness that is not produced by good conditions, but that is revealed when attention rests in the present rather than racing ahead or behind. I discovered this not through formal meditation, through dishes. Through the specific experience of washing dishes one morning when I was 53 years old and had not yet learned any of what I am about to share. I was washing the dishes after breakfast, and I was not washing dishes. I was living somewhere else entirely. In a conversation I was going to have later that day that I was anxious about, running through what I would say, what she might say, how I would respond to what she might say. The dishes were being washed by my hands, but I was completely absent from them. I was in the future, in an imagined conversation, experiencing in advance the anxiety of something that had not yet happened and might not happen the way I was imagining anyway. And then my hands touched something in the water, the texture of a particular cup, the temperature of the water, some specific sensory detail, and for just a second I was actually there, in the kitchen, washing dishes, in the morning light. And the quality of that second was so different from everything I had been experiencing a second before that it stopped me. Not the second itself, the difference, the contrast between living in my head and being actually present was so stark, so noticeable, so viscerally real, that I stood there over the sink and felt something that I can only describe as recognition. This is here. This actual present moment, with its water and light, and the simple fact of being alive in it, is here. And I have been somewhere else. If something in what I'm describing is familiar, if you know the experience of moving through your own life as though it were happening at a slight remove, as though you were present in body but absent in some more essential way, then stay with me. Because what I want to offer next are not ideas about awareness. They are specific, simple, immediately applicable practices for finding inner peace through the daily awareness that is already available to you in every ordinary moment of your life. The first practice is the practice of one thing fully. Once during the day, just once. Choose one ordinary activity and do it with your complete attention. Not your phone attention, not your thinking while doing something else attention. Complete attention. Every sense engaged with what is actually happening. If you are eating, taste what you are eating. Feel the texture. Notice the warmth or the coolness. Be genuinely present to the experience of eating, rather than using eating as background noise for thinking. If you are walking, feel your feet on the ground. Notice what your eyes actually see, rather than what your mind is projecting onto the visual field. Feel the air. Hear the sounds as they actually are. This practice sounds almost absurdly simple. Most people, when they hear it, think they already do this. They don't. The mind's habit of departing from the present moment into thought is so established, so automatic, so continuous, that genuine presence to a single ordinary activity is rarer than almost any of us realize. And the gap between what we think we experience and what we actually experience when we are genuinely present is one of the most significant discoveries a human being can make. Because in that gap is where peace lives. In the actual experience directly felt rather than in the thought about the experience. The second practice is the practice of noticing arrival. Throughout the day, whenever you move from one place to another, from one activity to another, from one conversation to another, take a single breath and notice that you have arrived. You are here, in this room, in this activity, in this conversation. Not still back there, not already ahead there, here. This practice takes less than 5 seconds, and it does something that 5 seconds almost never does. It interrupts the seamless, unconscious continuity of a mind that moves through a day without ever quite landing anywhere. That is always partly somewhere else, that lives in transition rather than in the moments between transitions. The practice of noticing arrival trains the mind's attention to land, to settle, even briefly, even imperfectly. And each time it lands, even briefly, even imperfectly, there is a quality of peace that is present in that landing that was not present in the perpetual motion before it. The third practice is perhaps the most transformative of all three, and it is the most difficult. It is the practice of meeting difficulty with the same quality of presence you are learning to bring to ordinary moments. When something goes wrong, when a conversation turns painful, when anxiety arrives, when grief visits, when anger arises. Instead of immediately departing from the present moment into the mind's response to what is happening, which is almost always to fight it, or flee it, or fix it, or explain it, you bring your attention to what is actually there. In your body, in the texture of the experience, not to the story about what it means, not to the implications, just to the feeling itself. Where is it in your body? What does it actually feel like? What is its quality right now in this specific moment? This practice does not make the difficulty go away, but it changes your relationship to it in a way that everything else you might try to do cannot. Because meeting difficulty with presence rather than with fight or flight removes the secondary suffering. The suffering that comes not from the difficulty itself, but from the mind's reaction to it, from the resistance, from the catastrophizing, from the anticipation of how bad it might get, from the judgment about having the feeling in the first place. The feeling itself, directly experienced without these layers, is almost always more survivable than the story about the feeling. My name is Lavan. I'm 72 years old. I live in a small temple where the practice of awareness is not a formal technique. It is the texture of how the day is lived, where washing dishes is washing dishes, where walking is walking, where a conversation is a conversation, where the present moment is not a platform for planning the future or processing the past, but the actual location of a life being genuinely lived. And the peace that I have found in this way of living is not the peace of good circumstances. My circumstances are not particularly exceptional. It is the peace of contact, of genuine, direct, unmediated contact with the life that is actually happening, rather than with the life that is being thought about. And that peace, unlike any peace that depends on conditions being right, is available in every moment, not just the quiet ones, not just the easy ones, in the ordinary, unglamorous, imperfect moments of an ordinary, imperfect life. In the moment you are in right now, this one, here. And the path to it is not through achieving anything or resolving anything or waiting for anything. It is through the simple, daily, patient, perpetually renewable practice of arriving in it, one ordinary moment at a time. Before we part tonight, I want to ask you something. Choose one moment from tomorrow, just one ordinary moment when you will actually arrive in it rather than passing through it on your way to somewhere else in your mind. Choose it now. Name it in the comments. Not to be held accountable, to make it real. Because naming what you intend is often the bridge between intending and actually doing. And one moment of genuine presence tomorrow, one real arrival in the actual texture of your actual life, might show you something that no amount of thinking about peace can show you. That it was here all along, waiting for you to arrive in it.